What I've got on the channel today is a brand new microbrand startup company based here in Brisbane, Australia. The gentleman's name is Warwick, the watch is named ATMOSS, and it's basically a watch that's been 4 years in the making. Now the gentleman who reached out to me to review these watches, he's a pilot who flies Cessnas and other small planes. He's also got a background in architectural design and trade. So this watch has been 4 years in the making. So what is it? Well, it's basically a pilot's watch in its simplest form. In other words, everything that's necessary for a pilot is included in this watch and everything else is scrapped. Now it's not a perfect watch, but it's an interesting design and an interesting concept is brought back from the past into a watch that we've got here today. Now you saw the pop-up, this video is sponsored by ATMOSS. Upon successful campaign, they'll be providing me with a watch. However, as with any supplier that sends any product into this channel, they have zero input into the review. I'm going to tell you what I think about these, good, bad or indifferent. And what I mean by successful campaign, this is a Kickstarter. And for me, I've decided not to do any more Kickstarters on the channel. However, this gentleman Warwick, he contacted me last year and I'd already committed, so here they are. So let's get stuck straight into the specs and I'll tell you all the nitty-gritties about this watch. And I measure a case diameter of 41mm with a case height of 11.4. The lug to lug is 48.5 and a lug width of 20. Now the crown is 5.3mm, it's signed, it's a screw down crown. The watch also offers 100 meters of water resistance, and the weight of the watch on the FKM rubber strap comes in at 95 grams and 141 grams on the engineer style bracelet sized to my 18cm wrist. Now looking at the overhead, the watch is sitting fine. It's a 41mm diameter case. The actual bezel I measure at 41.5, there's a slight overhang. The height, that comes in at 11.4 and the comfort has been really good. Whether on this bracelet or whether on the FKM rubber straps, the watch has been very comfortable. It seems to sit on the wrist very nicely, the legibility has been very good, the comfort, not a problem as well. It seems to taper around the wrist very nicely. And upon the initial usage of the FKM rubber straps, I actually thought these were a silicone. They feel, on the outside, they actually feel soft like a silicone, but it's actually FKM. And that's a real pleasant surprise because the comfort has been good and the durability is going to be fantastic being FKM rubber. Now I mentioned at the start that the idea behind the watch is a pilot's watch, but with the things that it needs and everything else that it doesn't, they omit. And what you've noticed on this watch, it's got a bezel, it's got a bi-directional bezel, in other words no clicks, and it's got a friction fit, so it's very smooth, very nice to operate, just the right amount of resistance, and it's got an insert which is basically a slide rule. And not many people of this generation might be up to speed of what a slide rule is. It's basically a calculator on your watch. Brands like Breitling or Zinn, their pilot's watches, they also feature some form of a slide rule function. But that's a topic for another video. If you want to hit the books or go back to school and study what a slide rule is, you can. It basically is a simple calculator for determining distances and times and all the rest. Not dissimilar to a tachymetric scale. Some people might find functions like these useless, to others they're very intriguing. Whatever the case, it's a functional tool designed for pilots. Now moving on, the action of the bezel is very smooth. It's got, for me, it's got the right amount of resistance. I know that they've said they're going to change, they're going to make it a lot easier to turn. I don't like it. I actually prefer it as it is. I think this particular one here is perfect. I've tried a couple of them. They seem to be just the right amount of firmness, which is really nice. So in my opinion, I'd leave it as it is. Now if we turn the watch over, you'll notice there's an exhibition case back. The watch features a Miyota 9039, no date, no ghost position, hacking hand winding, very strong and reliable movement, beating at 28,800 vibrations per hour. No issues there. And you've also noticed that these feature a black customized rotor. If we have a close look at the cases of these watches, they're all brushed. There's fine satin brushing, very tool aesthetic, there's no shiny bits, nothing to reflect, and in that regard I really like it. Moving my attention over to the bracelet, you can see it's an engineer style bracelet, female end links, they pop straight down, which is great. The articulation is very good. In fact, the comfort on this has been fantastic. At the moment they feature split pins. The production versions will have screw pins. As you can see, milled swivel, twin triggers on that clasp. At the moment this has only got 2 micro adjustments, as it is a prototype. The production will have 4. So I also believe they'll be changing the taper on this bracelet from 20mm down to 18. But in saying that, I've had no issues. It's been really stable, really nice on the wrist. Moving on to the crystals of these watches, they feature a single dome sapphire with anti-reflective coating on the underside. They're doing a really good job. However, I'm not a fan of single dome. I know that it picks up reflections at different lighting angles, also a little bit of distortion at acute angles. So for me, I would have preferred a double or even a flat, but that's just my personal preference. And lastly, looking at the lume of the watches, they feature Swiss Superluminova BGW9 on the handset and all the markers. As you can see, it's legible. How long does it last? Well, after 10-15 minutes, you can start to see the degradation. I think just a little bit more application would have been nice. Now, before I touch on the negatives and positives, I'll tell you the price. Being a Kickstarter, they're super early birds, and on the FKM rubber strap, it's going to come in at $312 US, and on the bracelet, $347. If you're keen on something like this, I suggest you get in early, sign up early. So what are the positives and what are the negatives of these watches? And the first negative for me, that crown, it only comes in at 5.3mm. I've not had an issue using it. The knurling seems to be good, but aesthetically for me, I think it's too small. For a 41mm watch, that ideally for a pilot's watch, I would have preferred a 7mm crown. Something nice and large. Maybe it's me, it's my personal preference. It just would have been easier to grab. You can grab this, it's just a little bit more, you know, with my fingers, it's a small experience. I would have preferred a slightly bigger crown, just for ease of use. Second negative, I've got to touch on that slide rule. It is functional and usable if you know how to use it. However, there's also difficulty in reading some of the fonts. They're very crisp, they're printed nicely, however they're small, not dissimilar to a Breitling. The numbers are there, but you really got to have decent eyesight to be able to read them. Another negative I want to touch on is that lume. It's good, but it's not exceptional. Maybe I'm being a little bit harsh, but a lot of us here are lume junkies, and we always want more is better. Especially with a watch that's designed to be a tool and its ultimate goal is legibility in all lighting scenarios. That would have been nice. And the last negative I'll touch on is that sapphire crystal. For me, I'm not a big fan. I would have preferred a double dome. It's cleaner, it picks up less reflections. Now, what are the positives of this watch? Well, first and foremost, it's good to see another local Australian getting involved in a watchmaking journey. Like I mentioned, Warwick is an amateur pilot who flies Cessnas, other small planes, and he's got that background in architectural design. So he's decided to put his hand to the plow and make something. I like that. As far as the watch is concerned, the quality to price ratio seems very, very good. What I've got in the hand is finished well for the money outlaid. The comfort, whether on the FKM or whether on this bracelet, has been, again, very, very good. And lastly, the price. At super early birds, I think you really can't go wrong. Let me know your thoughts, guys. I'll leave all the links in the description so you can check these guys out. It's called the ATMOSS SR-01, basically everyday pilot's watch. It's functional, it's clean, it's been easy on the wrist and easy on the eyes, albeit a couple of tweaks I think really would benefit these watches. Thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. Be well, be safe, and we'll see you all in the next video.